Hello fellow chatterers and book lovers and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious or you're lost. I'm Chatty and welcome to my channel Chatty the Mad Chatter, where today I'm going to be chatting away madly about all the books I've read in the last 2 weeks of May. Once again, we are one shot, no editing. Let's do this. So for the second 2 months it has been pretty successful. I did manage to finish off the 2 books that I was reading. So that was Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. It's been a reread for me. This is a classic. I just find it a big comfort read. I haven't read it for such a long time, so I had a great time possibly sort of looking at it with slightly newer eyes, just in terms of that I'm a lot older this time round reading it. So I think I found it a lot more humorous than I did before. I think I much appreciated the jokes on some of the other characters and what you were inferring and what Jane Austen wasn't saying but was heavily hinting at in quite a few moments. And I did really enjoy the protagonist. I loved her taking everything at face value and not being here for any of society's mind games, unlike her best friend Isabella. I found all of that hilarious. I enjoyed the Guardians who were looking after Catherine in Bath, and the hilarity of human nature in them as well. It was a really enjoyable read. I had a great time rereading this and I'm very pleased that I did. It's not the best summary of Northanger Abbey, but it's a highly popular book. I'm sure there'll be better reviews out there. This is just my personal feelings towards it and my personal experience. As always, I will be linking the Storygraph links below, so please do click on that for a better summary of the plot if that's what you're wanting, and also trigger warnings in case there's any areas and topics you don't like to read about. And also there will be some reviews on there that will probably give you a better insight to the story than what I'm giving you. Whoa. Can't put it back on the shelf. I did also manage to finish Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Again, another reread for me. And I think just because I knew I just inhaled this book the last time I read it. I don't actually know how many days it took me, but it was my very sole focus. I was just tearing through this series because I just couldn't put it down. I need to know what happened. And I thought, a reread, I understand a lot more of what's going on, it'll be fine. But because it's my beautiful copy, I can't just read it here, there and everywhere. I needed to kind of dedicate time so that I didn't damage the book. I have done a pretty good job. It's obviously suffered a little bit from slightly bashed edges and a bit of fingerprinting going on, but I do love it and it needed to be read, and I enjoyed reading this copy. It is really hard. I did have to do lots of propping it up on pillows to kind of save my arms, but I just love having it all in one place, and I love the feel of the paper. I also love it when you close a big book. Just that sound, beautiful. And we have the beautiful end pages. Oh yeah, we have, it did get dropped and we've got a little bit of a bent page, but it's okay, it's okay. And here we have the map. So again, I'm not going to go into detail about the plot or summary for this one. It is the second in the series of Brandon Sanderson's epic adult fantasy. I do intend to do more of a dedicated review to this one because it is one of my favourite books, just like I did with Way of Kings. So I will talk more about it there. But I had the best time reading this. I loved it. It was so delightful to be back with these characters and to see them grow and to be at this part in their journey with them. So many funny moments in here for me. Moments that I didn't realise I'd want to kind of leap up and do a woohoo kind of moment, and moments where I felt really angry with characters. There was a lot in here that I had forgotten or I'd sort of missed in my memory. There's a lot in here. It's massive. So it was a lot of, I'm very pleased that I decided to reread everything before getting to Rhythm of War, which is the one that I haven't read, so that it's all fresh in my mind as much as it can be. I've also had a really great time on Shelf Space, sharing my thoughts with other fans and reading along with other people and hearing their thoughts. That I love that. I love that about Discord, that you just get to share thoughts and things. It's great. So yes, I've had a delightful time with this. I love the characters, I love the world. I don't need to say any more than that. Again, there's so many wonderful reviews out there for you to find more information about this one. The Storygraph links will be down there, and I do intend, I don't know when I'm going to get round to it. I'm not going to lie, I have no idea when I'm going to get around to it. I'm still waiting to kind of get around to doing the Ruin of Kings review, which I also really want to do. So it might be a while, but it will happen. And then I read Sweet Bean Paste. I read this, 1 as part of the Asian Readathon and 2 as part of Bookopoly, and I spoke about it at length in my Bookopoly wrap-up, which I will link here. So again, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I went into more detail during that wrap-up, but this was a really lovely book. I had a great time reading this. It's very character focused. It's very much about the people, about how their lives affect each other, learning more about them, and there's lots of cooking. Lots of cooking in here. It's set in Japan, and it was just a beautiful, I found it very beautiful little story. It explored an area I wasn't expecting it to, and I've never kind of come across that in a book before, and I thought it was a really important topic. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I had a thoroughly great time reading it. Again, Rainbow Grey. I read this as part of the 48-hour Bookoplathon. So this is Rainbow Grey book 2. It is The Eye of the Storm. It's middle grade fantasy, and I loved this book. Yep, it lived up to the first Rainbow Grey. Also beautiful straight frayed edges with Cloudcat Nim. So we have more of the characters, more of the world. We have another plot line. We get more rainbow magic. It was a really enjoyable middle grade. If you liked the first book, you will love the second. It's more of the same feelings for that one. And it did feel, there was a moment at the end of the book as well that produced emotion, and that's all I'm going to say. I hope all of you who look forward to reading it have a wonderful time with it. I had a brilliant time with this book, and again, it's part of my 48-hour Bookoplathon wrap-up, so please do look at that to hear all of my thoughts on this one. It was, yeah, lovely. Then I had Black Flamingo, and this is also a reread. It is part of my books I want to reread this year list. This is one of my absolute favourite books from last year, and I thoroughly enjoyed my reread of this. When I read it last year, because I wanted to thoroughly enjoy it and I didn't want it to be over too quickly, I gave myself lots of pauses in between like each chapter. It's a novel in verse, but it does like segment itself into chapters in here. And yeah, I had just a great time just reading it all in one go. So it felt like a different experience from exploring it that way and just having it all at once. And yes, I do love this book. It's just a really lovely story. I love all the feelings it produces. I love the protagonist. I love the way the book is, the story is told, and how it highlights important things. And again, it's part of my 48-hour Bookoplathon wrap-up, so I go into a lot more detail with all my thoughts in that video. Okay, 2 books now that I haven't spoken about at all, but I do really want to. So I have Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is a contemporary YA novel in verse. and it tells the story of, it looks at the topic of gun crime and revenge and the rules of the street and how people's lives are affected by how events happen to them and kind of the repercussions. And it's really powerful. It was really, really powerful. I loved this. I really thought I was going to, because you hear such amazing things about this book. It's got one of those shiny library covers on. I borrowed it from the library, so it's doing this weird thing with the light, which is annoying. It's also illustrated as well by Chris Priestley, and I thought all of that just added to it as well. I have also got the graphic novel of this from the library, and I'm really excited to read the graphic novel version too. And I really want to do a video where I talk about the novel in verse and the graphic novel and go into much more depth with it and look at how the different formats give you a different experience of the story. And both of these books are now on my books I've borrowed from the library but want my own copy of. So yeah, this was brilliant. It's absolutely like cemented why I love novels in verse. It was another amazing story, so powerful. I have no more words. It was just fantastic. And finally, I have another reread, The Name of All Things by Jen Lyons, which is the second book in a Chorus of Dragons series, which is another adult epic fantasy because I love them, but I seem to have quite a lot on the go at the moment, which is time consuming, but it's very happy use of my time. So yeah, this again, rereading this, I'd forgotten about certain things that had happened. It's got a very complicated plot. There's a lot going on. There's lots of different levels. The storytelling is not a linear storytelling, and there's lots of like present to past to retelling. It's characters telling their story, and then another character like chronicling their story and like annotating it with their input. So you've kind of got lots of different character voices in here, and I love that. I think it's brilliant. It's so much fun. On my original read, I loved this one more than the first one, and that's just a personal opinion. Again, we are doing a read along on the Shelterbox Discord, and I'm having a great time talking to people. It's very kind of sporadic, like this was supposed to be read last month. And some people read it last month. Some people didn't manage to start it until this month. So we've kind of been enjoying each other's journeys at different points. But we're all kind of hoping to read the third book in June. So that should be lots of fun too. But yeah, so some people really enjoyed the first one more. Some people enjoyed this one more. But I really love this world. I love Jen Lyon's authorial voice. That is the word, isn't it? Authorial. Narrative voice. It's got a lot of it's got like snarky humour, some sarcasm in there, and I really appreciate that. It works for me. I think a lot of people felt a little bit they missed some of the characters from the first one. So this book is kind of set a little bit alongside the first one. So you have the Ruin of Kings, then The Name of All Things starts like 2 days after the Ruin of King finished, but the characters from the Ruin of Kings meet the characters that are the protagonists of this book, and the protagonists of this book tell the characters from Ruin of Kings their story whilst they were doing other stuff in the first book. And then like the last, is it the last third? I think it's less than a third. I always think it's a third, but I think it's less than a third. They kind of catch up with the action. Oh, I can pause this. Hold on, let me find it. It's not a third at all. It's this tiny bit here. So this is the story of this book. And then this bit is when the two stories have then caught up to each other. So we've got back up to the present day, and then we get that little bit of the story at the end of the book. So I think for some people, they miss the characters from the first one. And because it's like people having a chat in a tavern, it didn't feel quite as urgent. The last one was characters having a chat in a prison cell. So it didn't feel quite as urgent. for me, I think because I'd had time to kind of take everything in from the first book, I preferred this one. I think because I connected to the protagonists a lot quicker in this one than I did in the other one. I felt the world building was so much stronger in this one. And I enjoyed both sets of characters kind of catching up with each other. I enjoyed all of that. But I understand why people might prefer the first one to this one and feel a bit confused by this one, because you're kind of expecting the second book to carry on with the action, and it hasn't completely done that. But what I also really liked about this one is that you get moments that link to the first one, and I love all of that, because I'm like, oh, okay, that's when that was happening, and you know a little bit more about it from having read that book, so it's fun making all those links and interconnections. And also because the first one was so much world building and plot setup to like smash in, it feels like we can kind of chill out a little bit more in this one and like be able to grasp the story and understand more where it's going. And you've embraced the crazy by this point. You've got a ticket on the train and you're happy with it. It's fine. Whereas the first one, you're a little bit like, whoa, what? But again, that's just my opinion. That was just my experience. Other people have different experiences. My one gripe with this one is chapter 2, the way they explain the Jurati's culture and their relationship with gender, I found slightly problematic and unhelpful. The spirit of the book is very pro-trans, but the way that it was explained and described in the first book kind of was more to like startle and shock, and I just found it really unhelpful, and that it could lead to kind of like misinformation, because like the parallels with our world, there were language and kind of confusion that a lot of people in our world who think about trans rights and things that we're trying to push for equality within trans rights, people have misconceptions about what it means, and it kind of linked into that a bit too much. It wasn't helpful. When you get to chapter 4, you understand a lot more what the author was trying to say. So basically, in Jurat, you have male and female are called mares and stallions. So female are mares, male are stallions, but they also have societal standing, and it's a societal standing which takes precedence over everything else. So mainly when they're talking about mares and stallions, they're talking about the societal roles. So the societal role of a stallion is the leader, the guardian, the protector, do a lot of combat. The mare is more of the behind the scenes, organising, making sure everything gets done, nurturing, teaching, family kind of role. So one character identifies as a stallion, but more in the societal role, she doesn't identify as a man. But the way it explained sex and gender was a bit iffy, because it made gender sound like she wasn't talking about gender. So I just felt like there was a third level that she wasn't clarifying, because there are trans characters in this book, and that is different to what she was talking about in chapter 2. So I just felt it was confusing and slightly unhelpful, but the spirit of the book is very pro-trans. It just, you just take a while to get there. So when she's talking about mares and stallions, it's the societal role, not gender identity, that is being referred to. So it just was a bit iffy between the differentiation between gender identity and sex and the societal role. So I'm going to try and come off that little soapbox now. But generally, I love the world building in here. We get to go to Jurat, we get to go to Yor, we get more of the world, we get like exploration of like the bigger problems. So like all the players are being moved into place. So the first book was Kieran's story, this is Janelle's story, and then I'm hoping Memory of Souls, which I haven't read, we're getting the link up of everyone and we're pushing forward with the present day plot. But we'll see. And again, like I already mentioned, I really want to do a dedicated review for Ruin of Kings. I also want to do a dedicated review for The Name of All Things. Don't know when it's going to happen, but I hope to do that. So that is everything that I read for the last 2 weeks of May. I'm currently reading another book that I'm not going to get finished by the time May finishes. So I'm not going to be counting it, and I'm just going to have to quickly squeeze it in June, despite the fact it's not on any of my June TBRs, and I've got a lot of books that I want to cover in June, but hey ho. So just briefly, just wrapping up, so I wrapped up Bookopoly. I'm not going to wrap up Readathon because I'm still working on like all my different prompts. So I'm going to do like that whole wrap up kind of in June, because it's 2 weeks of May and 2 weeks of June. So I'll wrap up that Readathon then. But the Asian Readathon, I'm going to talk through now. And it was very ambitious trying to squeeze in all these things that I wanted to do this month that I didn't realise until I'd already set myself a TBR. But I really enjoyed, I've really enjoyed looking at other people's videos. I still want to do more of that. There's lots of really fun vlogs that I want to watch about the Asian Readathon. Now I'm not bashing my way through chunky books. Maybe I'll have a little bit more time to do that. But obviously went to Sweet Bean Pace for the Asian Readathon. The other book that I was trying to get in was actually one that I never mentioned in my plans to read for the Asian Readathon. She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, who is Australian Malaysian. Yeah, she's Australian Malaysian. I think because I was originally hoping to read The True Queen, but I just didn't manage to get it in, with the chunky books taking more time than I thought they were going to. And this book I was then hoping to put in my June TBR, but I couldn't get it into my Whatever-a-thon plans. So I need to get this back to the library. I also really want to read it, and it is part of my Chatties challenge, trying to read my 7-year I can't remember what I called it, but reading 7 years worth of popular fantasy books. This is one of the 2021 ones, so it would help me get through that list as well. So I've decided I'm going to try and push it into May, and it's not, as you can see, it's not getting finished. I'm not very far in at all. I'm just literally here. Like I've barely looked at it. But yeah, between these two were my prompts. Like this fits 4 of the 5 prompts. It's a book by an Asian author. Dorian Sukawagu is Japanese. It features Toku, who is an older female character. Trying to remember the other prompts off the top of my head. Place you would like to be, or place different to you. I've never been to Japan. I would love to go to Japan. I like the cover, but it's not giving me googly eyes. It's not, because of the amount of beautiful covers out there. This is nice. It's a nice cover. It's a lovely cover. It's a sweet cover. It's not a googly eye cover. And this was recommended to me because it came to me in the Shelterbox BookClub pick. So I'm also looking forward to watching the live show of that and hearing other people's thoughts on this. I don't usually read the books on time to participate in those. So it hits 4 of those 5 prompts. So the one it doesn't hit is the googly eyes. And I do love this cover. For She Who Became the Sun, this is a googly eye cover. It's beautiful. Look at this dragon that weaves its way around the words. The orange and yellow, I love it. And on the end papers, look at all this. Look at all that beautiful flamey patterning. It's gorgeous. So it does meet googly eye cover in this one, but obviously I'm not gonna hit all the prompts. So 4 out of 5 prompts is pretty good going when I've been trying to squeeze it into everything else. There were so many books I could have read that I wanted to pack in, but I knew I was never going to manage more than 2 for the Asian Readathon, which is a shame, but I'll be better next year. I was really hoping to get The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O in here, but again, it didn't happen. And it's a shame because it would have fit so perfectly. Asian Readathon, it could have fit my Bookopoly prompts, but you know, I've got a reward and punishment riding on me finishing these 2 chunkers, so I had to prioritise them. Plus, I do prioritise my series and trying to read through them especially when I'm part of read-alongs as well. I want to keep up with the conversations in the chat. So it just so happens that I've kind of dedicated myself to 3 at once for June, so I need to keep going with those. This will get read at some point, definitely. I also have a whole host of books that I took out the library in preparation for Asian Readathon and for 48 Hour Bookopoly. And they will need to go back because there's no way, they're not in my June TBR. There's no way I'm going to read them all. So most of them are going to be going back. But I did manage to read a couple of chapters of this one. It's not counting for any points because I didn't read the whole thing. And I think this author was Australian Malaysian as well. I think I looked it up. I don't think it's in here, but yeah, I think he's also Australian Malaysian too. So that would only be from, it has to be each book. What's the word? Prompt has to have an author from a different country. But this was lovely. I'm definitely, it's going to have to go back to the library, but let's go orange spray edges. I need to definitely take it out again. It's all about nature, and I'm just going to show you some illustrations. So I've looked at 3 of these stories in here. It's called Tales from the City. So here is a whole load of silhouettes of different animals that the book focuses on. And so their chapter numbers are just inside their silhouette. So I read crocodiles and butterfly, and I can't find it. Where is it? And dog. So I read the first 3. And let's look at these illustrations. That is just like a picture of all of these swarm of butterflies just landing on everyone and everyone being amazed by it. But my favourite was the one with the dog. Just these illustrations. Like, once we were strangers. One day I threw my stick and you brought it back. My hand touched your ear. Your nose touched the back of my knee. Then we were walking side by side, as if it had always been this way. So if you are a dog lover, I just think you're going to love this. So it just goes through these beautiful pictures of the dog on one side waiting for the human, and the human on the other side waiting for the dog. And it goes through all these different pictures in history until finally we get this moment. I can't get the page. So we're now in modern day. Human and dog have turned and can see each other. And then the long-awaited embrace. Look at that. Look at that hug. It's just so heartfelt. So I'm quite reluctant to hand this back to the library, but I need to be sensible. I will get it out again and I will read it. I will read it all properly. Because there are lots of pages like this when there's loads of writing on it. Like the 3 I chose were quite short. So there was the dog. Oh, look at this picture. Sorry, look at this. I've got this lovely kind of shaggy dog over here on these fields, and there's a woman planting or gathering crops over here. I just love it. So yeah, I'm picking this up again, especially when I feel in a naturey need. But I just wanted to share that with you. I was also hoping to read another chapter of the Mahabharata, but that never happened either. So plans. This is going to be a short video and we're just approaching half an hour, so I'm going to wrap it up. So that's everything I read for the last 2 weeks of May. That's everything I read for the Asian Readathon. Like I said, I've done my Bookopoly wrap up already, and I will be releasing my stats video soon. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've had a great last couple of months of reading. Do feel free to chat to me. If you enjoyed me waffling, please give it a little like. If you like the vibe, do a subscribe. Quite like that rhyme. And happy reading, everyone.